The great meeting hall buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around the massive crystal table, all talking at once. The space station hung in orbit around Nexus Prime, the most important world in the galaxy. Today, they were deciding the fate of humanity. Ambassador Sarah sat quietly in her chair. She was the only human in the room. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she wore the standard blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. While the aliens argued around her, she kept her face calm and watched. The delegate stood up first. His green skin shimmered under the bright lights and his 4 arms gestured wildly. "The humans are too violent," he declared. His voice was high and sharp. "They attack first and ask questions later. In the border dispute with the Empire, they destroyed 3 ships before trying to talk." Murmurs of agreement came from around the table. The representative nodded her elegant head. Her blue skin seemed to glow as she spoke. "The humans do not understand proper procedure. They ignore our careful diplomatic protocols. They make crude solutions to complex problems." The constructs spoke next. They were not biological beings like the others. Made of living metal and crystal, they shared one mind across thousands of bodies. When they talked, their voice sounded like music played on metal instruments. "Individual consciousness brings chaos," they sang. "Humans think only for themselves. They cannot work for the greater good like proper beings should." Sarah listened to each complaint. She had heard them all before. The galaxy was built on rules, on careful procedures that took months or years to complete. Humans did things differently. When there was a problem, they fixed it quickly. When someone needed help, they acted right away. This made the other species uncomfortable. The healer caste representative, a tall being covered in soft fur, spoke in a gentle voice. "Humans mean well, but they are too hasty. They perform medical procedures without proper approval from the medical council. They save lives, yes, but they break important safety rules." "Exactly," shouted the ambassador, his rocky skin scraping against itself as he moved. "They saved my colony from the plague last year, but they used untested medicines. What if those medicines had made things worse?" "But they didn't make things worse," Sarah said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken. "We saved 40,000 lives." "That is not the point," said the delegate. "You did not follow proper procedures. You did not get approval from the medical council. You did not run the required tests that would have taken 6 months. Your people would have been dead in 6 weeks, Sarah replied. The room fell silent for a moment. Then the argument started again, louder than before. The collective, a hive-mind species that looked like walking plants, rustled their leaves angrily. Humans are unpredictable. We cannot plan around them. They change their minds. They break agreements when they think it is right to do so. Sarah remembered the agreement the collective was talking about. Humans had promised not to interfere with a local war between 2 small species. But when one side started using weapons that killed civilians, humanity broke the agreement and stopped the war. The other species called this breaking a promise. Humans called it doing the right thing. Council Prime stood up. He was the leader of the council, a tall being with silver skin and 3 eyes. His species was one of the oldest in the galaxy. They prided themselves on wisdom and careful thinking. "We have heard enough testimony," he announced. "It is clear that humanity cannot live peacefully with the rest of galactic society." "We have tried to be patient," added the delegate. "We have hoped that humans would learn to follow our ways, but after 50 years of membership in the galactic harmony, they still act like children." The constructs sang in harmony. "Order requires all parts to work together. Humans are a part that does not fit. They must be removed so the machine can work properly." Sarah stood up slowly. She looked around the table at all the faces staring at her. Some looked angry, some looked sad, a few looked relieved. "What exactly are you proposing?" Council Prime, 3 eyes blinked one after another. "Humanity will be expelled from the galactic harmony. You will have 30 standard cycles to remove all humans from Harmony space. This includes all colonies, all military bases, and all trade stations. You will return to your home system and remain there. You are exiling us, Sarah said. It was not a question. We are giving you time to think, the Council Prime replied. Perhaps isolation will teach your species the value of contemplation over action. Maybe in a few centuries, you will be ready to join civilized society. The vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. They voted to expel humanity. So did the constructs sang their agreement. The collective rustled in favor of expulsion. Every single species voted the same way. Sarah was the only one who voted against the expulsion. The final count was 847 to 1. The vote is final, announced Council Prime. Humanity has 30 standard cycles to leave all Harmony space. You will take nothing that belongs to the Harmony. You will leave all facilities in working order. Sarah nodded once. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. With a few quick movements, she entered codes that would begin shutting down all human operations across the galaxy. We understand the Council's decision, she said. Her voice was steady and calm. Humanity will comply fully. She sent one final message to Earth and all human colonies. The message was simple: pack everything. We're going home. As Sarah walked toward the door, she heard whispers behind her. The aliens were already discussing how they would divide up human territories and take over human operations. They seemed very pleased with themselves. Sarah did not look back. She stepped through the door and began the long journey home. Behind her, the council continued their meeting, already moving on to other business. They had solved their human problem, and now they could return to the proper way of doing things. None of them noticed the small smile on Sarah's face as she walked away. The message reached every human settlement in the galaxy at the same time. From the ice mining stations near the galactic rim to the busy trade colonies in the core worlds, humans got the same simple order: pack everything and go home. Dr. Ra of the expected chaos. He had seen other species forced to relocate before. There were always protests, angry broadcasts to the galactic news networks, and desperate appeals to other governments. When his own people had been forced to move from disputed territory, it had taken them 3 years and caused 2 small wars. But humans were different. Dr. Ra stood on a hill overlooking New Geneva Colony and watched the exodus begin. He had come to study how humans would react to forced displacement. Instead, he found himself studying something he had never seen before: perfect organization. The humans did not protest. They did not send angry messages to the council. They did not ask other species for help. They simply began to pack. Large transport ships landed every few hours. Humans worked in teams, moving equipment with smooth efficiency. They had clearly planned for this possibility. Every family knew exactly what to take and what order to load their belongings. Children helped without complaining. Adults worked without arguing. What disturbed Dr. Ra was not the speed, but the completeness. Humans did not just take their personal items. They took everything they had built. The advanced terraforming machines that had turned New Geneva from a dead rock into a green world disappeared overnight. These machines had taken the humans 20 years to design and build. The technology was worth billions of credits. Other species had begged to buy copies, but humans had always refused to sell. Now the machines were being broken down into component parts and loaded onto cargo ships. Dr. Ra watched human engineers carefully remove every bolt, every circuit, every piece of valuable metal. They left behind the empty buildings and basic infrastructure, but they took all the knowledge of how to make it work. The agricultural centers were even more puzzling. For 30 years, human farmers had grown crops that could feed 12 different species. Their plants produced 300% more food than standard galactic agriculture. Dr. Ra had assumed the humans would leave the farms running for the new colonists who would take their place. Instead, he watched the humans delete all their agricultural programs from the colony computers. They took their special seeds, their genetic modifications, and their farming techniques. The fields remained, but the knowledge of how to make them productive was gone. In the medical centers, human doctors worked frantically to save their research. Dr. Ra knew these facilities contained cures for 17 diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. He had assumed this medical knowledge belonged to everyone. He was wrong. The humans had developed the cures, so the humans owned them. As the doctors prepared to leave, they wiped every medical database clean. Years of research disappeared in minutes. The medical equipment remained, but without the human knowledge of how to use it, the machines were just expensive decorations. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 73 worlds. The Economist watched the evacuation of the trade hub with growing alarm. The hub was the most important commercial center in 3 sectors. Human merchants had provided 60% of the shipping and 80% of the emergency repair services. Now those services were leaving. Had not realized how much the trade hub depended on human flexibility. When ships arrived with unexpected cargo, human dock workers found places to store it. When equipment broke down, human engineers fixed it with whatever parts they could find. When 2 species got into arguments about trade contracts, human mediators solved the problems quickly. The humans even ran the recycling centers that kept the station clean. Their small restaurants somehow managed to serve food that 12 different species could eat safely. Human taxi services connected different parts of the massive station. All of this was disappearing. "Where will they go?" asked Captain, a human freighter pilot who was loading the last of his cargo. "Home," replied simply, "we're going home." "But what about your contracts, your business relationships? You have spent decades building trade connections." Paused in his work and looked at her. "The council voted," he said. "They decided we don't belong here, so we're leaving." "This will cause severe economic disruption," protested. "The hub needs your services." "The council didn't think so," said. He finished loading his ship and sealed the cargo bay. "They voted 847 to 1 that the galaxy would be better without us. I hope they're right." On the frontier world of Hadrian's Rest, Construct Collective Node XJ9 processed the departure of human engineers with growing confusion. The constructs prided themselves on logical thinking, but the human evacuation logic. The humans were leaving behind fully functional cities. The power plants worked perfectly. The water treatment facilities ran smoothly. The transportation systems operated without problems. Everything looked normal. But XJ9 had access to the maintenance records, and what it found there made no sense. According to the official specifications, half the systems on Hadrian's Rest should not work at all. The planet was too hot, too dry, and too far from supply lines to support the infrastructure the humans had built. Yet everything worked perfectly because human engineers had improvised thousands of small solutions. They had modified standard equipment to handle the harsh conditions. They had created backup systems using spare parts. They had written new software to make incompatible machines work together. Now those engineers were leaving, and they were taking their modifications with them. XJ9 watched the last human transport ship engage its quantum drive and disappear into hyperspace. Hadrian's Rest looked the same as it always had, but the Construct Collective felt a strange new sensation: uncertainty. For the first time in its existence, XJ9 was not sure what would happen next. Across the galaxy, space traffic controllers noticed something odd. The busy shipping lanes that connected hundreds of worlds had suddenly become quieter. Human ships had always made up a large part of galactic commerce, but nobody had realized exactly how large until they were gone. The regular supply runs to remote colonies stopped. The emergency rescue services that humans provided disappeared. The communication relays that human ships maintained went silent. In the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, Council Prime reviewed reports from across Harmony space. Every report said the same thing. The human evacuation was proceeding smoothly. There were no protests, no delays, no problems. "They are being very cooperative," his aide observed. "Yes," agreed, but something in the reports troubled him. The humans were being too cooperative. They were leaving too quickly, too efficiently. It felt less like an evacuation and more like a planned withdrawal. As if the humans had been ready for this all along. Dismissed the thought. Humans were chaotic and unpredictable. They could not plan that far ahead. The evacuation was going well because the Council had made the right decision. The galaxy would be more peaceful without human interference. But as he read report after report of human facilities shutting down and human knowledge disappearing, began to wonder what else the humans were taking with them. 6 months after the last human ship left Harmony space, the problems began. Mining supervisor stood in the control room of Prime's asteroid mining facility and stared at the red warning lights covering his display screens. The massive operation that had run smoothly for 15 years was falling apart. "What is the status of Extractor Unit 7? He asked his assistant. "Complete failure, sir. The mining laser overheated and melted its own focusing array." His green skin darkened with frustration. "That is the 4th extractor this month. These machines are rated for 50 years of operation." "Yes, sir. But the human engineers modified them to run much hotter than the manufacturer intended. They increased output by 400% by bypassing the safety systems." "That is impossible. Machines cannot run beyond their design specifications." His assistant pulled up the maintenance records on her tablet. According to these files, Chief Engineer made modifications to 17 critical systems. She rerouted power flows, installed additional cooling units, and wrote new control software. The extractors were producing 4 times as much ore as they should have been able to. Studied the records with growing horror. The human modifications were everywhere. Standard equipment had been altered in ways that made no engineering sense, yet somehow worked. Now, without human maintenance, the machines were returning to their original specifications. Original specifications that could not handle the increased workload. "Sir," his assistant said quietly, "at current production rates, the facility will not meet its quotas. We will lose money instead of making it." Looked out the window at the asteroid field. Billions of credits worth of valuable metals floated out there, but his equipment could not reach them efficiently. The humans had made the impossible possible, and now they were gone. 3 sectors away, the trade hub faced a different crisis. Traffic controller now watched her displays with growing panic as shipping delays mounted. "Why is the cargo ship Stellar Wind still in Docking Bay 12? She demanded. "It should have departed 6 hours ago." "Dispute with the cargo ship Merchant's Dream," her assistant explained. "Both ships claim priority docking rights for Bay 15. The protocols require a formal arbitration process." "How long will that take?" "Standard arbitration takes 3 weeks minimum. Both captains have hired legal representatives." Nuz's 4 eyes blinked in disbelief. 3 weeks for a docking dispute? "Yes, ma'am. The proper forms must be filed, reviewed by the Arbitration Council, and processed through the Conflict Resolution Department." "What did we do about these disputes when the humans were here?" Her assistant checked the old records. According to these files, human mediator Johnson would call both captains to his office, listen to their complaints for 10 minutes, then assign docking priorities based on cargo urgency and departure schedules. Average resolution time was 37 minutes. Nuz stared at the screens showing 17 more shipping disputes awaiting arbitration. The hub's careful efficiency was collapsing into bureaucratic chaos. Without human mediators to cut through proper procedures, every small problem became a major delay. The medical crisis hit hardest on the research station orbiting Altair 7. Dr. Senna of the Healer Caste watched helplessly as a simple viral outbreak spiraled out of control. The virus had mutated, as viruses do, but the standard medical protocols were designed for the original strain. The mutation had changed the virus enough to make the standard treatments ineffective. Dr. Senna knew that human doctors would have adapted quickly. They always kept broad-spectrum medicines on hand and modified treatments based on symptoms rather than strict protocols. But human medical knowledge had been deleted from all galactic databases when they left. "Can we contact Earth?" asked her assistant, Dr. Moore. "Perhaps the humans would share their adaptive treatment protocols." "The humans are in isolation," Dr. Senna replied. "They cannot be contacted without Council approval, and the Council has refused all requests for human assistance." The virus spread to 3 more stations before Dr. Senna finally developed an effective treatment. It took her 4 months. A human doctor would have found a working treatment in 4 days. On the frontier world of Nu, colony administrator Lex faced his own crisis. A massive solar flare had damaged the main power grid, leaving half the colony without electricity. "The repair manual calls for replacement part number 7739 Delta," reported Chief Engineer Nu. "We do not have that part in storage. Can we order one?" "The nearest supply depot is 6 months away by regular transport. The part costs 40,000 credits plus shipping." Lex studied the damaged power grid with growing despair. The who designed the system had built it perfectly for normal conditions, but frontier colonies did not have normal conditions. Solar flares, asteroid impacts, and equipment failures happened regularly. The human engineers who had previously maintained the colony would have fixed the problem with spare parts from 3 different systems, held together with creative engineering and clever programming. They called it making do. Other species called it improvisation. The engineers who designed the replacement systems did not believe in improvisation. Their equipment worked exactly as designed, or it did not work at all. "Sir," Nu said quietly, "without main power, life support will fail in the residential sectors. We may need to evacuate the colony." Lex nodded grimly. A 40-credit repair that any human engineer could have completed in 2 hours was going to cost them an entire colony. Council Prime sat in his office reviewing crisis reports from across Harmony space. Mining operations failing, trade hubs paralyzed by bureaucracy, medical emergencies becoming catastrophes, infrastructure falling apart. Every report traced back to the same problem. Systems that had worked perfectly under human management were failing without human maintenance. His aide, a young named, placed another stack of reports on his desk. "Sir, these are requests for emergency technical assistance. 47 colonies are requesting immediate help with infrastructure failures." "What kind of assistance do they need?" "Most are asking for human engineers and technicians." His 3 eyes narrowed. Humans are no longer available. They are confined to their home system. "Yes, sir. The colonies understand this. They are asking if exceptions can be made for emergency situations." "Absolutely not. The Council voted to expel humanity because they were disruptive to galactic harmony. We cannot allow them back every time there is a small problem." Hesitated before speaking. "Sir, these do not appear to be small problems. According to these reports, several colonies may become uninhabitable without immediate technical assistance." Studied the reports more carefully. The pattern was unmistakable. Across the galaxy, systems that had functioned smoothly for decades were breaking down. Equipment was failing. Procedures were becoming inefficient. Problems that used to be solved quickly were now taking months to resolve. "This is temporary," declared. "The galaxy is adjusting to proper procedures. Once everyone learns to follow correct protocols instead of relying on human shortcuts, everything will work better than before." But as he read report after report of cascading failures, wondered if the humans had been taking more than just their belongings when they left. Perhaps they had taken something much more valuable: the ability to make things work when they should not work, to solve problems that had no proper solution, to keep civilization running through pure stubborn creativity. For the first time since the vote, began to wonder if the Council had made a mistake. 18 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy faced its greatest crisis in 1,000 years. Captain Varix of the Defense Force watched his tactical display with growing terror. The red dots representing enemy ships outnumbered his blue dots 3-1. The invasion force from outside the galaxy had already destroyed 6 star systems, and his fleet was all that stood between them and the core worlds. The enemy called themselves the Devourers. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They consumed everything in their path and moved on to the next target. "Enemy fleet is closing to weapons range," reported his tactical officer. "They are not responding to communication attempts." "Implement Standard Defense Protocol 7, Varix ordered. His ships moved into the careful formations that had protected the galaxy for centuries. The Elegant had designed these tactics based on mathematical principles. Each ship had its assigned position. Each formation had its precise function. Everything was planned and orderly. The Devourers tore through the formation like it was made of paper. Their ships moved in chaotic swarms that made no tactical sense. They attacked from impossible angles. They ignored proper combat procedures entirely. Varix's organized fleet could not adapt to such random, violent tactics. "Sir," his communications officer said urgently, "Admiral Ra is requesting permission to implement human combat protocols." Varix hesitated. Human military tactics were considered primitive by galactic standards. They relied on chaos, unpredictability, and individual initiative rather than proper coordination. The Council had specifically banned their use as unsuitable for civilized warfare. Another ship exploded on his display, then another. "Grant permission," Varix ordered. "Implement all available human combat protocols." His communications officer looked confused. "Sir, the human military databases were deleted when they departed. We do not have access to their combat protocols." Varix watched his fleet die and realized the horrible truth. Humanity had not just taken their ships and weapons when they left. They had taken their knowledge of how to fight enemies who did not follow civilized rules. The Devourer fleet broke through his defensive line and continued toward the core worlds. Varix sent a final message to Harmony Command before his ship was destroyed. "Request immediate human military assistance. Traditional tactics are insufficient against this enemy." The message reached Nexus Prime 6 hours after Varix's ship was destroyed. By then, 3 more star systems had fallen to the Devourers. Meanwhile, the trade hub faced complete economic collapse. Director stood in the main command center and watched her life's work fall apart. "Trade volume is down 78% from last year," reported her economic analyst. "Shipping delays average 43 days. Several major trading companies have moved their operations to independent systems." "What about the arbitration backlog?" "Currently at 847 pending cases. Average resolution time is now 11 weeks. Studied the economic projections with despair. The hub had been the commercial heart of 3 sectors. Now it was becoming an expensive monument to bureaucratic inefficiency. The problem was not just the arbitration delays. Without human mediators, trade disputes escalated into economic wars. Species that had traded peacefully for decades suddenly discovered they could exploit every loophole in the carefully written contracts. The Empire had found a clause that let them claim ownership of any cargo left in their space for more than 30 days. They were seizing ships and demanding ransom payments. The collective had discovered they could delay any shipment by requesting additional safety inspections. 12 different species had started charging new processing fees for trade that used to be free. Humans had always ignored the fine print and focused on making trade work. They had threatened, cajoled, and bribed different species into cooperating. Their methods were crude, but they worked. Now, without human pressure to keep everyone honest, the galactic economy was tearing itself apart. "Ma'am," her assistant said quietly, "we have received 17 more requests for human trade mediators. Several companies are offering to pay any price for their services." "Humans are not available," replied automatically. "They are confined to their home system." "Yes, ma'am. But some companies are asking if we could send delegations to the Sol system to request help directly." Consider this. It would mean admitting that the galactic economy could not function without human intervention. It would mean acknowledging that the Council's decision had been wrong. Another trading company declared bankruptcy while she was thinking about it. The medical crisis reached catastrophic proportions on the Of. Dr. Senna had been called in to help with a plague outbreak that was killing thousands. The disease was a mutation of a common virus that should have been easily treatable, but it had adapted to resist all standard medications. Worse, it affected multiple species differently, making it almost impossible to develop a universal cure. Dr. Senna knew that human doctors had always maintained huge databases of medical information from across the galaxy. They had studied diseases that affected dozens of different species. Their broad knowledge let them find connections that specialists missed. But that knowledge was gone now. "How many casualties?" she asked her assistant. "Over 50,000 dead on alone. The plague has spread to 6 more worlds. Estimated casualties could reach 10 million if we cannot find an effective treatment." Dr. Senna had spent her entire career perfecting treatments for medical conditions. She was one of the most respected doctors in the galaxy, but this plague attacked and constructs in completely different ways. Her specialized knowledge was useless. "Have we tried contacting human medical experts?" she asked. "The Council has forbidden all communication with the Sol system," her assistant replied. "However, some doctors are discussing the possibility of sending an unofficial medical mission. That would be a direct violation of the Council's orders." "Yes, ma'am, but without human medical assistance, this plague could destroy entire species." On the artificial world of New Terra Prime, the Construct Collective faced its own existential crisis. For the first time in their species' history, they were experiencing system-wide stagnation. Collective Node XJ9 analyzed the data with growing confusion. Innovation rates had dropped to nearly zero. New ideas had stopped emerging from the collective consciousness. Even their basic maintenance routines were becoming less efficient. The problem was that constructs had evolved to be perfectly ordered beings. Their society functioned like a vast machine, with every individual playing their assigned role. This system worked wonderfully when everything went according to plan. But it could not handle unexpected problems. For decades, humans had served as chaos agents in construct society. They had introduced random variables that forced the constructs to adapt and grow. When human engineers suggested impossible solutions to engineering problems, construct minds had to stretch to understand them. When human artists created chaotic beauty, construct consciousness had to expand to appreciate it. Now, without human chaos to stimulate them, the constructs were falling into perfect, sterile order. They were becoming so organized that they could no longer think of new ideas. XJ9 accessed the collective's innovation database and found it almost empty. For 18 months, the constructs had created nothing new. They had only maintained existing systems and followed existing procedures. Chaos is required for growth, XJ9 reported to the Construct Council. Without random inputs, our society is becoming static. We need unpredictable stimuli to maintain cognitive flexibility. Where can we find such stimuli? Asked the Prime Collective. XJ9 processed this question for 0.003 seconds. Humans were our primary source of beneficial chaos. Without human interaction, we are experiencing creative stagnation. Can we simulate human unpredictability? Negative. Simulated chaos is not truly random. It follows programmed patterns. Only genuine human creativity provided the unpredictable inputs our society requires. The Prime Collective considered this data. What is your recommendation? We require immediate restoration of human contact to prevent permanent cognitive stagnation. Our society may face evolutionary dead end without human chaos agents. Council Prime received all these reports within the same week. Border defenses collapsing, economy failing, plague spreading, even the construct's reporting system failures. Every crisis traced back to the same problem, the absence of humanity. Sir, his aide said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider the exile decision. The galaxy appears to require human services more than we realized. Three eyes studied the crisis reports. The evidence was undeniable. Galactic civilization was falling apart without human interference. Their chaos had not been a problem, it had been a solution. Schedule an emergency council session, he ordered. We need to discuss ending the human exile immediately. Sir, there is one more problem. What? The Sol system is no longer accepting communications from Harmony space. The humans appear to have isolated themselves completely. We may not be able to contact them even if the Council votes to end their exile. Felt a chill run through his body. The galaxy was collapsing, and the only people who could fix it had disappeared behind a wall of silence. The humans had left when asked to leave. Now the question was whether they would return when begged to return. 2 years after the expulsion, Ambassador led the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history. Her fleet of 12 ships represented every major species in the Harmony. They carried formal apologies, trade agreements worth trillions of credits, and desperate pleas for help. Their destination was the Sol system, humanity's home. Stood on the bridge of her flagship as they dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. The Sol system was surrounded by a defensive network, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of automated platforms floated in perfect formation around the star system. Each platform bristled with weapons that did not match any known technology. Between them, fields of stealth mines created an impenetrable barrier. Attempt to hail the human government, ordered. No response, ma'am. Our signals are being blocked by some kind of interference field. Try all frequencies. Use emergency diplomatic codes. Her communications officer worked frantically at his console. Ma'am, I am detecting response signals, but they are not coming from the planets. Something is approaching our position. A small probe appeared on their screens. It was sleek and black, moving with impossible grace through the defensive field. It stopped just outside weapons range and transmitted a simple message. The Galactic Harmony Council voted to expel humanity from galactic space. Humanity accepted this decision, and to our home system as requested. We are now in voluntary isolation. Please respect our quarantine and leave immediately. Stepped forward. This is Ambassador of the Harmony Diplomatic Corps. I request immediate contact with the human government. We have urgent matters to discuss. The probe's response was cold and mechanical. Humanity is no longer part of galactic civilization. We have no diplomatic relations with the Harmony. Your presence here violates our isolation protocols. We need your help, said her voice rising with desperation. The galaxy is facing multiple crises. The Devourer invasion has destroyed 12 star systems. Economic collapse threatens the core worlds. Plagues are killing millions. Without human assistance, galactic civilization may fall. The probe was silent for several minutes. When it spoke again, its voice was different, warmer, more human. We are aware of current galactic conditions through our monitoring networks. However, the Council was quite specific about our place in the galaxy. According to the vote, human presence causes too much chaos and unpredictability. We are simply ensuring we cause no further disruption to galactic harmony. Felt panic rising in her chest. The Council was wrong. We admit our mistake. We need your chaos. We need your unpredictability. The vote was 847 to 1, the probe replied. Such overwhelming consensus cannot be dismissed as a simple mistake. The Council clearly understood the consequences of their decision. No, we did not understand. We thought we could manage without you, but we were wrong. Please, you must help us. The probe transmitted a data packet containing footage from across the galaxy. Watched in horror as the images showed the full scale of the collapse. Cities abandoned due to infrastructure failures. Trade routes paralyzed by bureaucratic disputes. Hospital ships overwhelmed by plagues they could not treat. These problems existed before our expulsion, the probe observed. The Council chose to remove the people who were managing them. If human solutions were truly valuable, the Council would have valued them instead of expelling us. We were blind, protested. We thought your methods were primitive, but now we understand they were essential. Please give us another chance. The isolation order was permanent, the probe replied. The Council wanted humanity removed from galactic civilization forever. We are honoring that decision. Behind the barrier, Earth looked different than remembered. The planet glowed with new cities and technologies. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the world, clearly the work of a species that had used their exile time wisely. Other human-settled worlds in the system showed similar growth. Humanity had not been sitting idle during their isolation. What have you been doing here? She asked. Building, the probe answered simply. Learning, growing. We have used our isolation to develop new technologies and expand our civilization. We have colonies in systems beyond Harmony space now. Our species is thriving. While the galaxy burns. The galaxy chose its path. We chose ours. The probe transmitted another data stream, this one showing human colonies far beyond the old Harmony borders. Dozens of worlds, all thriving with human creativity and technology. They had not been weakened by exile. They had been freed from galactic restrictions. Realized the horrible truth. Humanity had been preparing for this exile long before the Council vote. They had been building secret colonies and developing advanced technologies while pretending to struggle with galactic bureaucracy. The expulsion had not hurt them. It had liberated them. You planned this, she whispered. We prepared for many possibilities, the probe confirmed. Galactic civilizations that reject diversity rarely survive. We knew the Harmony would eventually try to eliminate anyone who thought differently. We prepared accordingly. Then help us, teach us what we did wrong. You did nothing wrong according to your own values, the probe replied. You created a perfectly ordered society based on rules and procedures. You eliminated chaos and unpredictability. You achieved exactly what you wanted. But it is killing us. Order without chaos leads to stagnation. Harmony without discord becomes death. You cannot have growth without change, and you cannot have change without disruption. We were your disruption. You removed us. Fleet waited in the cold space outside the Sol system for 3 days, sending message after message. Each time, the response was the same polite refusal. Humanity would not leave isolation. They would not rejoin galactic civilization. They would not provide assistance. Finally, the probe delivered the human government's final message. President wishes to convey her gratitude for the Council's decision. The expulsion allowed humanity to pursue our development without interference. We are now free to explore the galaxy beyond Harmony space, where we have found many species eager for our assistance and partnership. You are abandoning us, said. The Council abandoned us first. The vote was 847 to 1. Such overwhelming rejection cannot be reversed by a simple request for help. Actions have consequences, Ambassador. The Council must live with theirs. The probe turned and flew back into the defensive field. Fleet waited another day, but no further communication came from Earth. They returned to Harmony space empty-handed. The news of humanity's refusal to help spread quickly through the remaining galactic civilization. Some species were angry, others were desperate. A few began to understand what they had lost. In a bitter irony, several species began trying to copy human tactics. The military started training in chaos warfare. Economists attempted to ignore trade regulations to speed up commerce. Medical teams began experimenting with unauthorized treatments. But they missed the essential element that made human methods work: the flexibility to adapt when plans failed. They implemented chaos tactics as rigid doctrine, following written procedures for being unpredictable. They broke trade rules systematically, creating new forms of bureaucracy. Medical teams used human techniques exactly as written, without understanding when to modify them. They were trying to create order out of chaos, which defeated the entire purpose. Meanwhile, intercepted communications from beyond Harmony space told a different story. Human colonies were forming alliances with independent species who had never joined the Harmony. New trade networks were emerging based on human flexibility and creativity. Technologies were advancing rapidly without the constraints of Harmony regulations. Humanity had not just survived their exile, they had used it to build something better. Council Prime sat in his office reading the latest crisis reports. The Devourer invasion had reached the middle systems. Economic collapse was spreading to the core worlds. Medical facilities were overwhelmed across 12 sectors. His aide placed one final report on his desk. "What is this?" asked. "Population migration data, sir. 300 million beings have left Harmony space in the past 6 months. They are seeking asylum in human-allied territory. They are defecting to the humans." "Yes, sir. Reports indicate that human allies offer better economic opportunities, more effective medical care, and superior protection from external threats." Studied the data with growing despair. The galaxy's most creative and adaptable individuals were abandoning Harmony civilization. They were seeking the chaos and unpredictability that the Council had rejected. "Sir," said quietly, "there is one more thing. We have received a message from the human government." "What kind of message?" "An offer, sir. They are willing to accept any Harmony species who wish to join their alliance. They promise full membership with equal rights and equal representation. The only requirement is acceptance of their core principle." "Which is?" "Diversity of thought and method. They believe civilizations grow stronger when different species contribute their unique perspectives, even when those perspectives create chaos and conflict." Realize the final, crushing irony. Humanity was offering the galaxy exactly what the Harmony had claimed to provide, a place where all species could thrive together, but the humans meant it. The Harmony had created order by forcing conformity. Humanity was creating strength through controlled chaos. "Sir," continued, "I should mention that I have submitted my resignation. I will be joining the exodus to human space next week." Nodded slowly. He understood her choice. The harmony was dying, slowly and quietly, strangled by its own perfection. Outside his window, the space lanes around Nexus Prime were emptying as more ships departed for human territory. The galaxy's harmony, purchased at the cost of chaos, had become the silence of slow death. The humans had departed silently, as requested. Now the galaxy was learning to live with the consequences of that silence.